for finals? When is finals? Next week?
Next week.
Oh.
Actual exam week is next week. You are keeping on
Like
exams.
project submissions and all, it will be like.
Even exams.
If you have exams,
Or people like Ashish who study for 1 week.
You are graduating?
That almost sounds like shame on you, but yeah, we had hoped in our association you will take longer. You're joining us for the first time?
yeah.
Okay, my name is Nityananda Pran Das. Yours?
My name is Vivek Samani.
Vivek?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise, I'm from Food Science Department, studying in IIT.
Oh, that's the place where Professor Kadiravan is there?
Yeah. He's my mentor. Actually, he's guiding me a lot
Oh, good.
with all this.
Okay, he's a very close friend and neighbor for me.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay, good. All right, so the guy we wanted to discuss fate is fatefully, he's not there. He was not destined to be here. So much question about fate and all that. Anyway, well, let's just take it from there and we'll see where we go. What stuck to you from what we discussed last week? Let's see if we can remember something, because this is a continuation from last week. So let's see if we can remember a couple of things from the way it helps Vivek as well. What are some things that you remember?
How our actions are generally governed by the material modes or our consciousness at that point of time.
How our actions or consciousness are governed by the modes of nature.
And also how, irrespective of which mode you operate, you are still in the prison.
We are in the prison apparently. Okay, we're all prisoners apparently. So depending on whichever mode it is, we're in the prison. So what are the three modes of nature?
Rajas, tamas, sattva.
English?
Passion, goodness, and ignorance.
And these three pretty much, what are they called? The modes in Sanskrit we had a word. Guna. And guna, another meaning for guna is rope. So the reason it's called guna is because these three, they are braid in different ways to form a very tight and formidable rope. And these three pretty much bring about all the variety that we see in this world. And that variety, according to our Vedas, shows up in how many species? 8,400,000 species, right? Of which human beings constitute 400,000 varieties. This is why there is variety. And these modes pretty much dictate and affect anything and everything we see in this material world. One way to visualize, to see where all the modes can reach. One way to visualize is, it's like the blood that flows in a body. Whether you cut here or you cut at the toe, any part of the body you cut, you'll find blood there. Because blood pretty much pervades every cell of our body. Similarly, these three modes of nature, they pervade literally every cell of material existence. Another characteristic of the modes is that these modes are constantly competing with each other. The sattvic quality is competing with rajas and tamas for predominance. Rajas is competing with sattvic and tamasic qualities for predominance, and so is tamasic or tamas. So at any given point in time, in any one of us, in any living entity, these three modes are constantly competing for predominance. Therefore, you will find that even a very good person, so-called good person, can do something very stupid. And sometimes you will also find that even a so-called stupid or dull person or whatever can do some of the very amazing things in terms of sattvic. Okay, so that's important to know, because the modes are constantly. And when we say someone is a good person, it is not necessarily true that they are good all the time, because the modes are competing. Sometimes you will see the really not so good part show up and you're like, wow. So that's one characteristic of the modes. They're always competing for predominance. Another is one really has no freedom from them. And these modes, a third characteristic is that these modes, they show up, they push the person to act and think differently in different circumstances. So something may happen out there, and the mode of ignorance, if it is high for me at that moment, and let's say the environment is surcharged with ignorance, then there is the law of, or we say, resonance. In physics we've talked about resonance. The classical example is I want to tune a piano. So I have a tuning fork, and there are different forks that have different frequencies. This is how you tune an instrument. So they will vibrate the tuning fork and pass it along the piano. Whatever is the frequency of the tuning fork, when it matches the frequency of the particular key on the piano, that will vibrate. So you know, oh, this is this key. It's called resonance. So you'll find that when there is ignorance around and a person is also influenced by ignorance, then there is resonance. Otherwise, it doesn't influence them at all. For example, let's say a person is influenced by the mode of goodness, and they walk into an environment that is unclean, dirty, which is ignorance quality, tamasic, right? Immediately they will be, they'll feel out of place. But the resonance is, a person in tamasic quality will enter and will not even notice. They will not even be able to tell that something is out of place. Take it the other way around. If you have a very sattvic environment that is clean, organized, nice, and a person with sattva guna walks in, they just be at home. A tamasic person will feel like, yeah, I'm in a museum. I'm feeling out of place here. This is too good to be true. It's not like that. Some things has to be disarray. So they'll throw things here and now it looks good. It's like that. They have to allow for ignorance to show up to feel that they are resonating with it. That is how it works. So then, to today's topic about fate and destiny and free will. So this is a guna, rope. Literally a rope doesn't allow for movement because it is tied a person. So one of the examples that is used in our Vedic philosophy is that our freedom that is there inherently becomes limited or extended according to our actions. Just as a leash around a cow extends or shortens depending upon how the cow is moving. Okay, so the very fact that the cow is on a leash, right, means it cannot go beyond the length of the rope. So whatever is the radius from wherever it is pegged to however long the rope is, within that radius the cow has unlimited freedom. And beyond that length of the rope, it doesn't have the freedom. It is now, if this rope, if the cow walks around, let's say, a pole that it is tied to. Hi, how are you? If the cow walks around the pole that it is tied to multiple times, then the rope becomes shorter, right? So like this, every living being has freedom, or what we call free will, but that free will by one's own karma cannot find full expression. Let's take a tree. A tree has a soul that previously, at least according to Vedic understanding, previously that soul may have been in a human being. But when it's in a tree, what happens to its free will? It doesn't lose it, it just can't express it. Because it's in a body that is confined in a way that cannot move and express. But it expresses a little differently. Fruits and flowers and all of that. But that's it, no movement. Because that rope that has been tying the cow, by the dint of the cow's movement, has become to such a length that the cow really doesn't feel it can move. That's what we call free will. There's a full ability to, full potential to express, just doesn't have the facility to do so. Just like a person who's incarcerated. Okay, so let's say a gymnast, okay, or some sports person, very agile, ability to move fast in a very flexible, dexterous way. But if they're incarcerated, they're handcuffed, there are shackles on their feet or ankles, then do they have the ability, innate ability to move freely? Yes. But does the facility allow them to do so? No. So the question then is, for such a person, why are they incarcerated? Because they have done something that puts them in handcuffs and shackles. So a person or a living being's ability to express their free will or inability to express their free will depends upon their past activity. That past activity determines what, it's true. In our case too, just from a smaller time scale example, we all believe what we are doing today has or is meant for a better tomorrow. True? Yes. And a better day after tomorrow. That means we know, or we hope we know, that activities now will influence our experience in the future. So the same time, if you move this way, then whatever activity we had performed then is determining our experience now. If that were not true, none of us has to really work hard or study well, because if the future is anyway random, then why try to influence it now? We try today to influence our future. Similarly, what we have done in the past is influencing our present. Now if you extrapolate it further, whatever we have done in our previous lives has influence when we come into this world and as we live through this world. It's a series of events. Now, one may say, how is that possible? So for a moment, we'll digress from this topic. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the soul has no birth or death. It is nothing but a series of events. Okay? And in those series of events, there are discrete time segments. Each discrete time segment is called birth and death. Just as from the time we have been born, right? Let's say any one of us is on average 25 years old. For 25 years old, we have been we, right? If I say Vivek, were you Vivek 20 years ago? The answer is yes. Were you Vivek a year ago? Yes. But in those 25 years, there have been distinct time segments called days. A day starts and it ends. Another day starts and it ends. And each day can look different, yet the experience of that person remains consistent. Not experience, the experience of existence remains consistent throughout the 25 years. Right? We have this experience. On a broader macro level, that is how the soul passes through this material world. Except the timelines are quite more extensive. So there is birth and death. And within this, there are a lot of changes. There are 6 transformations within this. Right? So, past activity has influence on present and future. So that is the concept of free will. Free will exists because each one of us is a conscious living being. In Sanskrit, the words are called Sat, Chit and Ananda. In English, Sat means existent. By nature, we are existent, we are alive. And we are eternally alive. It's not, Sat means eternally alive. There's never a time that the soul dies. The body it's in can die. So existentialism is one of the characteristics of the soul. The second is called Chit, a sense of awareness and knowledge that I exist. That's called Chit. And Ananda is the state of bliss or happiness. By nature, every living entity is happy. Okay. Now, we will try to establish this in a little, I guess, practical way. Each one of us, now at least in the human life, if we notice, except in some rare cases, we always want to preserve our life. True? None of us thinks, I want this to end. Even if we think like that, hopefully none of us is, the first situation we are in where that is threatened, our life is threatened, even without consciously thinking about it, subconsciously we will move towards preserving life. For example, you're in a swimming pool, you're in water that is deeper than you can handle, and when you can't breathe, you don't say, oh, I can't breathe, let it be. We will flap our hands and legs somehow to get some air, because preservation of life, because we are eternal. Every living being, as soon as there is a threat to life, will protect itself or try to preserve life. You cut down a tree, you pour cement, even there's a little crack in the cement, 2 leaves from a plant will show up. Because preservation, that is the eternal nature, because being alive is the characteristic. Then there is a sense of awareness that I exist. And the way one knows is the very fact that they are aware they are alive, and that's why they want to preserve it. we are asked, who are we? We can tell. Every morning when we wake up, it's a new day, right? I'm speaking a little philosophically, so I hope you're okay. At night, when we are in deep sleep, we don't know who we are. We forget whether we are rich or poor, whether we are happy or unhappy, whether we are male or female. We forget whether we are PhD or masters, we graduated or not graduated. We don't know. We're completely unaware. True? And as soon as we wake up, that awareness kicks in. Oh, I am such and such. I have an assignment due. I have an exam coming up. I have no money in the bank. Or I take of course, this is more on the cognitive and conscious side, that when I look at a toothbrush, I know what I'm supposed to do with it. That's on the conscious. But subconsciously, we know who we are, what our identity is, what we have to face around our. But when you go back to deep sleep, you have no clue. It is because the soul has this innate chit power or potency, and that is why we are aware. And happiness or ananda is here, nobody is looking for distress. By nature, whatever we are doing, we do so we want to be happy. We never do because we want to be unhappy. We cannot do. It's just not there. Even in the most unhappy circumstance, we will find little ways by which we can feel happy. And although there is unhappiness, I guess, forced on us by circumstances, we still will look for ways and means to feel happy, or at least forget the unhappiness, because unhappiness is not our nature. So here's what's going on. We are eternal, knowledgeable or aware, and eternally happy by nature, and we are situated in a body in the material world that by nature is temporary, ignorant or inert and unhappy. And this dichotomy is cause of suffering. And our ignorance of that fact that I'm actually not matter but spirit is the cause of suffering. So we are in an artificial situation. That artificial situation is the cause of unhappiness or distress or suffering. Anything that's in its natural state is always in harmony. Anything that's in an artificial state is in disharmony. It's unstable. Right? Anything that's in its natural state is in perfect harmony. As soon as you make something artificial, it's always unstable. So why are we feeling instability or experiencing instability within and without? Is because we're in an artificial situation. And so the foundation of Vedic philosophy is to make us aware of our natural condition. Another statement just to strengthen what I said. You take anything that is in its artificial condition and you let it be, then it somehow or the other moves towards its natural condition. Right? You have to do something to continue keeping it in its artificial. But if you let go, somehow or the other it will tend towards its natural condition. For example, water by nature is liquid. You make it artificially, you freeze it to make it ice. As long as you continue to keep it in this cold temperature below freezing point, it remains as ice. You let go and it will melt and come back to its nature. We are also like that. As long as we are in the artificial condition, this artificial thing is being in the material world is imposed on us. even within that, we're constantly looking to go back to our natural state of Sat, Chit and Ananda. Unknown to us, but that's how we are. Now, because we are Sat, Chit, Ananda, whereas we have some expression of volition. Volition means I can take an initiative to say or do something or think something. By nature, I have volition, and volition indicates free will. But the artificial imposition can be such that that volition cannot be expressed or can be expressed freely. So if you take the species between a tree or a plant to, let's say, human being for now, you will see that it's the same soul just migrating into different bodies, but now as it progresses into human form, it can express itself. Human beings are considered more evolved because of their ability to express, physically express, verbally express, put their thoughts into action, conceive of different ways, to ask questions, to compute, to make logical connections, right? And come to conclusions and deduce things, to infer things, is there within human beings. And one of the most evolved things is language. To be able to convey words, meanings, phrases, sentences, books, speeches is very evolved. And in that evolved condition, there are even more evolved beings who have the skill of putting words together very nicely, ideas together, poetry, art, music, all these are refined abilities, right? So that free will is there. Now, many times we ask the question, what does destiny mean, or what does fate mean? And if fate, one of the meanings of fate, destiny, which sometimes are used interchangeably, and that's how we're going to do it today. If everything is determined, then where is my freedom? That's a common question. And the answer is in the intricacy of it. And this is how the intricacy is. If we had a board, I would have drawn it for you, but I'm going to do it visually, so hopefully that will help you. We all have, at least as human beings, let's start there. Let's not worry about animals and stuff, because we're not animals. We all have, in every situation of life, we have one thing that can never be taken away from us. In any condition. And that condition, that thing that we have that can never be taken away is, you want to take a wild guess?
Soul.
No, soul is who we are. What we have is choice. Thank you. Choice. We always have a choice. We may think I don't have a choice. We may even say, I really didn't have a choice. That's not true. We always have a choice. We may not be aware of it, or we may not exercise it, but we always have a choice. Okay? And because we have a choice, we have the freedom to choose. For example, I'm going to make it a little dramatic. It doesn't have to be this way, but dramatic means, examples are always given at different ends of the continuum, because that's sort of the limits of stuff, right? Someone holds a gun to our head and tells us, give us all the money. Of course, in students, they may not say that, because students don't have any money. But let's say they say, give me the money that you have. Do we have a choice? Right. Do we think we had a choice? We may say, I didn't have a choice, I would die. But there is a choice. We may not exert it, but there is a choice to not give. Of course, the choice has a very short lifespan after that.
Consequences.
Yeah. However, so we evaluate consequences and we make choices, but the choice of the other side is there, even in that condition. So this is how destiny works. Destiny is a predetermined outcome. Okay? Now that predetermined outcome only manifests after you made the choice. Until then, it's there but it's not active. Think of it this way. I have a choice to make and I have three choices. Choice A, B and C. Choice A, the outcome of choice A is whatever, X. The outcome of choice B is Y. And the outcome of choice C is Z. So whether it will be X, Y or Z is already determined. But what choice I will make is not yet determined. As soon as I choose A, because I've chosen A, X is determined. If I were to choose C, Z is determined. So one may say, well, it's already determined in the sense, as soon as I make a choice, that outcome is determined. It's fated. It's destined to come out that way. Of course, this is a very simple, what I like to call mind map. It's not as simple. Between here and there, then there are multiple other choices. So we keep moving. There is interconnectivity in all these choices and paths. But every action has a determined outcome already there. That is destiny. So someone may say, can you change your destiny? I says, yes. There's only one destiny you cannot change. But that also can change. In most cases we say we cannot change, like death. Cannot change that, everyone has to die. Although what happens at death can be changed. Okay? So can one change one's destiny? Sure. That's why you find persons who were born with absolutely no facility, nothing at all, become very successful. In one sense it's determined so, that's how it will be. But it's also determined by the choices they make and the opportunities that they grabbed onto. If they did not, some other outcome would have come. Okay. Now, why someone gets an opportunity and someone doesn't get an opportunity is determined by previously what I have done or not done, by which those opportunities can be presented or not presented. So we cannot say, so there is this aphorism in America, all men are born equal. Is not a true statement. None of us, we are all not born equal. We are born with equal, perhaps, opportunity. And in one strict sense, even that is not true. Because that opportunities that will come, in one sense, are determined by previous activities. And so, as we are charting through life, and our best friend is also charting through life, the path, the runway that gets lit up for us is different than the runway that gets lit up for them. Although we're in the same place, same runway, it feels like, we're roommates, we're best of friends, and when we talk to each other, it seems like very similar backgrounds, but my runway will look different from their runway. That's just how it is. Each one of us has a very individual pathway. There are commonalities, and that is why we are all human beings, so we are commonalities. And we may have similar circumstances. We are all students, or you are all students. Okay? But within those similarities or side by side, there are the uniquenesses. Right? And so when there are things in common, we relate to each other. When they're unique, we don't relate to each other. But this is how fate or destiny and free will work. Now, in about 15 minutes, we simplified one of the most complicated networks. Okay? Because it's just easier to explain, but it is not as easy or simplified. There is something about the law of karma that is good to remember. The law of karma is very, very difficult to understand or very difficult to analyze, but relatively easy to perceive. So I say it again. The laws of karma are very, very difficult to analyze, but relatively easy to perceive. Which means, as life is happening to us, we can perceive and say, oh, some things are happening to me because of my karma. Something in the past and some choices that I'm making now. I can perceive it, but analyzing it is very difficult or impossible because we don't have the liberty of insight into our past beyond a certain time. So we can answer the what, like what is happening, but we cannot answer the why. It's practically impossible. So when people say, why is this happening to me? The probably the best answer that really doesn't satisfy is, maybe it's your karma. Oh, come on. But you cannot answer why. And that's because we don't have insight into time beyond our boundary of awareness, which is before birth. We don't have that. Just as we don't have the ability to perceive time when we were in deep sleep. What happened when we were in deep sleep? We have no clue. It may have happened in the room we are sleeping, but we have no idea. Similarly, what happened when there was deep sleep for 7 months as an embryo form? We don't know when we wake up in this condition. We have no purview into it. So we say, since we don't know, we cannot answer why. Okay. Now some scientists or some psychologists or persons like to get a sense of it, so they try different things. For example, one of the things that they try is something called hypnotic regression. Hypnotic regression is basically you're put into a state of hypnosis, which is a little into the subconscious, and in that subconscious they have some access to memory from a previous life. That's one life ago, maybe. Because all our experiences and memories are stored in our what we call subconscious. It's there. We just don't have access to them. It's there. And subconscious is what drives our nature or our behavior. Look, for example, we'll say I'm sure some of us have said it, hey, this is just the way I am. Have you ever said that about yourself? This is just the way I'm wired. This is the way who I am. But why? And the answer is because we are a product of the past. So whatever is the way we are wired from those past actions, that is what is stored in the subconscious, and that's what manifests. Consciously, we may not be aware. We never are. So hypnotic regression is one of the ways some people try to understand what happened in the previous life. There was a scientist by the name Stevenson, who did some research into what he called past life memories. He documented about 2,600 cases of people, especially as young children, who had clear memory of their previous life. And he visited those places with them where, as a child of 5 or 7 or 10 years of age, they will say, I was in such and such city or town, that was the name of my wife or my husband, these were my children. They would take them and show them, this is my house, that's my wife, those are my children. They have memory like that. And as they grow, then that memory starts to fade. There are documented few cases, like about 2,600 that he has documented. Maybe there are more. That's another indication that there is something back there. But whatever is there has somehow or the other wired us to who we are now. And what's coming for us, or what has happened so far as we are treading on this I call runway, is all a system that is all working together. Our free will, our what we call fate or destiny, a set of choices, our karma, the modes of nature, all this is one integrated system. It's a very complicated machinery. And so complicated that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, when explaining this to Arjuna, he says, Kim kurvata, kim akurvata. What to do and what not to do. In most of our lives, we're always stuck between, oh, what should I do or what should I not do, right? That's sort of the daily grind of confusion, if you will. And Krishna says, Kim kurvata, kim akurvata, kavayo api atra mohitaha. Kavi are those persons who are very, very refined in their intelligence. Right? Intelligence is an ability that allows us to discriminate between what are the possibilities out there. So the greatest of such persons are called Kavi. And Krishna says, Kavayo api. Even if one is a very refined person as far as their intellect is concerned, atra, in these situations, mohitaha, they get confused or bewildered. That's how intricate karmic roadmaps are. And we're very tiny trying to figure out, okay, how does this all work? So any thoughts, comments? Because I'm sure there is something and we can build on it.
There's a very marginal difference between the fate and destiny, right? So what is that? How is destiny different from fate? Or are they both the same entity?
They are similar. I would like to think of fate, as I've understood, to be the outcome. And destiny is the path that takes us to that outcome.
Isn't the path choice?
The path opens up when I've made a choice.
So the starting point
is so it's like this. There are these 5 paths already there for in this situation, let's say. Okay? And I'm trying to figure out what choices to make. Depending upon my consciousness or sense of awareness, I may be aware of 5 paths, or I may be only aware of 2. Just because I don't even know they existed. Right? How many of us was in a situation of life when someone else got the deal or something and was like, oh, I didn't even know that promotion was on. You had that experience? With my life's all about like that. I never even knew promos were going on. But someone else knew. I did not know. Okay? So I have these 5, say, choices. All these choices that lead to the outcomes are already there. Now, depending upon my ability, whatever I'm supposed to get, my previous conditioning, as they light up, right, or they're aware, and as soon as I make a choice, let's say I make this choice, these go dark and this lights up, that is my destiny, that is the path I will take, and the outcome that I get from it is that, because it's fated, that outcome. Had I made a different choice, let's say this pathway, because someone was there to advise me and say, I'm not sure, although this seems logically, intuitively, this is the one you want to take, maybe this is the one that will help you more, blah, whatever. Everyone has an ability to see at least some distance into the future, although we think we have, but we don't, but we think. So much I can see. For example, it's very cold outside, snowing like anything, right? I feel like running out without my shoes. People do it. There's something called skinny dipping. They do it up there. Skinny dipping, you know what it is, right? Running naked in snow and jumping into cold ponds, right? You break the ice and jump into water, and then you come back up. Anyway. Someone else will say, well, your lungs are not strong, you do this, it's going to be very hurtful to you. But I didn't even consider that, maybe, for whatever reason. Now I know. So as soon as, for whatever is some good advice, something, then instead of this pathway, if I make this choice, this one gets lit up. Now that's my destiny. Now our understanding of destiny is maybe in short steps of decisions, or in some cases, once I've made this choice, all these choices forever might turn off. Some choices are reversible. Some choices are irreversible. So once they're on an irreversible path, then that destiny takes me to the next set of forced choices. I shouldn't say forced, next set of determined options. Some other option may not be available anymore. So my free will to choose that doesn't exist, because I already chose something else. So that's how free will and destiny sort of exert force on each other.
Isn't it like, do we really have the choice to make as we were
I thought
discussing?
last 20 minutes I was explaining that we really have the choice to make.
Isn't it like you are destined to live this way?
No, you're destined to live this way because you made a choice this way.
But we
And now-
don't have any authority on what choice that we make. We still have that liberty.
Absolutely. Can you give me an example of where only because you're married, other than that, you cannot make choices? Because you're destined, because you already made the choice.
I couldn't exactly remember the situation though, but sometimes
Memory loss is also there on the path.
sometimes we feel that even though we took some other options, we end up in this one where we regretted not to be there. So
Because we didn't understand how the path moves. We could only see up to a distance, and after that, if you're driving on South Michigan, you're sitting in your car, how far down South Michigan can you see? Only to the point of convergence of our vision. We can't see beyond that. So it looks like a straight road. As I drive, maybe at that point the road turns this way. But I don't have the ability to look so far. So we're making choices based on,
what we see.
yeah, remember one of the traps is limited senses, that we can make mistakes because we come under illusion. So we are working with, I guess, defective instruments in an artificial condition, and that's why movement through the material world is not easy. The choice is always there.
Say in one example, we really wanted to perform well in the exam and we study really hard. but we end up failing in the exam. So isn't it like we opted for one choice, but we ended up something where we don't want to?
Sure, possible. And I said the choices we make are also governed by previously what assets we have. So I may have studied very well, I just don't have the memory for it. It's possible.
It's a really very tricky thing. Like the subconscious memory is so powerful that we can remember memories from the past also if triggered in the right way. But what we studied last night, we will not be able to remember.
Because that study is governed by not just the choice of study, but remember last week we talked that there is choice in a subtle form also. In my mind I'm choosing certain things, right? So my motivation of why I'm doing something is also a choice, and that also governs. I want to impress someone, therefore, but that impressing makes me move in a particular way than otherwise.
The only thing I was thinking here is, once we have made one bad choice, suppose we've studied and we fail, and then now we keep either going the upside or the downside, but mostly the downside is more inclined because you fail, you feel that you failed somewhere, and then it's more difficult to get the motivation to succeed, and we fail, then we do not make any efforts because we blame that it is destined for me to fail. So we blame the fate, but we do not make any efforts to succeed next.
Some people are like that. We started the semester with how to manage through or work through failures, and we gave examples of people who failed and failed and failed and failed and failed and succeeded. They never gave up because they failed. Sought after by the TV channels guys because they wanted to interview him, and so they found him and they said, "Oh, would you give us an interview?" He said, "Yeah, sure." He sat down and the first thing they asked him, "Well, what is the secret of your success?" And he said, "Right choices." Oh, okay. Please say more. Why, how did you make right choices? This is experience. Oh, wonderful. Please tell us how you got those experiences. He said, bad choices. So, going back to, you said, suppose I made a bad choice. I would like to impress upon all of you or all of us that there is nothing called good choice or bad choice. There isn't. We put those labels, good or bad. Actually, they're all choices with consequences. That is all they are. And the consequences, the only way to think of them is they're either favorable or unfavorable at that point in time. And that can change. But there's nothing called good or bad. This good or bad is our mental projection of things. What looks good today may not be tomorrow. What looks like a bad possibly may not be. Okay? So try as much to free yourself of this good bad dichotomy. Think more in terms of I have choices, I have options. Each choice brings a certain outcome that are favorable or unfavorable, and you choose accordingly. Okay, what's the outcome? Is that favorable or unfavorable? Not every favorable outcome is called good, and not every unfavorable outcome is bad. I'm trying to remember this, I guess, story or joke, if you will. I may get the order wrong, but it's like this. There was once a duck that was very, very, very cold. It was shivering. It had no food to it. It had no shelter. It was icy cold. So he walked and he came up to where there was a herd of buffaloes. So the herd was standing there, so he also quietly stood there, and suddenly a buffalo passed stool and a blob of dung fell on the duck. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Someone pooped on you. The answer is, of course, bad. But the heat of the poop thawed the duck, and now he was alive. And the thing continues. If you guys remember, help me out. Then the duck goes somewhere else and falls into a ditch. Okay? So falling into a ditch, then a cat comes to pull him out. Right? Is that a good thing? No, cat eats the bird. So the saying goes, and I can't use the word because we're being recorded, but don't think that everyone who does it on you is necessarily against you. And don't think that everybody who pulls you out of a difficult situation is necessarily your friend. So don't think of it good or bad, it's the outcome, whether it's favorable or unfavorable. If a cat is coming to pull the duck out to eat it, the duck is the ditch, no? Like that. So again, try as possible, if possible in life, to get out of this good and bad. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dvandva mohena bharata. One who is bewildered by this duality. This is my victory, that is their loss. This is my profit, this is their loss. My gain, their loss. Good for me, bad for me. Cold and hot. These are all dualities that we constantly are moving between. One second. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, Vivek.
The artificial conditioning you talked about.
Yeah.
Can we control that?
Give me an example. Put more words to the thought. Can we control that? In what way?
Means somehow it is linked with that it doesn't allows us to express our will. So the example which you gave of the water. So would the water would be able to express its complete characteristic?
Right.
If it is in the artificial condition?
It cannot in the artificial, only when it gets to its natural state. So from a Bhagavad Gita or a Vedic perspective, the whole human life is to find that trajectory by which we can come to our natural state. So in Bhagavad Gita language, Krishna says, Punar Janmana Vidyate, such that you don't have another conditioned state where you're born into a conditioned body, if you will, and you live like that and you die. Rather, try to find a state of being where one is free of that and one's natural Sat Chit Ananda nature is fully manifest. That is called the path of yoga, to go from conditioned nature to natural state.
Say that we have established that we are a product of our past choices, and isn't that
We are influenced by our past choices, yes.
And the current state we are in is also a product of that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So that means that in one sense I am inherently drawn towards making such kind of choices, right? Because that's governing me. So how do you break free from that?
Right. In principle, we're all governed by, that is why we feel, I don't have a choice. this is my nature, this is how I will be, that is broken by the intervention of Guru. Someone who can, remember I've said it previously in a different set of words, when we change our value system guides our thinking and behavior. I have a value system, let's say, one should not lie, I should not steal from someone. That's the value I live by, because I have been given this value system. Yet there are some of us who, despite that value system being given, inside us, or I guess within our subconscious, there's a different value system that says, in general okay, but in these circumstances I can, or whatever, okay, or I have a different value system, etc. Then one has to have an intervention by Guru, so that the value system of the Bhagavad Gita can enter us. Because by that value system, our path of a different kind gets lit up. Otherwise, the existing value system will light up some other destined or fated path, if you will.
So the value system governs the favorable or unfavorable.
Governs the innate nature to make and consider choices.
Okay. As favorable or unfavorable at that point.
Or any choice.
Okay.
Correct. How I see this or how I see that. How I even know that these choices exist. For example, I mean, it's a little on that extreme. One of the instructions Krishna says is Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. That's a famous verse. Perhaps before coming across Prabhupada's teachings or the Bhagavad Gita, that is a choice was not even in the consideration set. Oh, that I can take shelter of Krishna. I knew, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to talk to this person, I need to buttermarify that person, I need to bribe here, I need to do that, whatever my set of choices. Easy, low resistance path. Perhaps. I mean, not just easy, low, any path. But we didn't know that this choice existed. We didn't know, oh, I could be like that. I didn't know that I could live like that. Or the choice of offering food to Krishna. I had no idea that I could live and eat in this way that will move my life this way. This is what I saw, right? Before that, I sometimes joke, we all liked seafood, right? Whatever I see, that is food. That's how it is. The new value system, a higher value system needs to be presented.
Again, it's our choice to choose it or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There, she's warming up.
I'm not sure if this is relevant in this, but according to me it is the entire concept of Jyotish, then that gives us, it kind of gives us the knowledge, like how Jyotish is, of all the choices that are there or all the consequences that might be. So is that actually correct, or is that relevant, or how does that mean? And I don't mean the newspaper astrology, like, you know,
Sure.
weekly astrology.
Sure. Would you like us to set a chair for you, or ground or floor okay? Yeah, I'm sitting on the chair. Any one of you can sit on the chair too, whatever works for you. No, you're okay, don't worry. The sense of astrology, okay, the science of planetary influence has primarily to do with the planet's influence on our ability or inability to think in certain ways. Remember resonance. If I have a tendency that is like this, then the planet's influence will strengthen that for a brief period of time. Because all planets exert a certain kind of influence on every being. And some people are specifically driven, some people unknowingly driven, but there is influence. Yet there is another path in which none of the planetary influences work. There are verses that describe that none of the planets' influence works at all.
In the Bhagavad Gita.
There are shlokas about Narasimhadev or Lord Krishna, whatever, Lord Ramachandra, that although one is supposedly destined to go in that direction, life changes to completely different. It's possible. So there is influence. However, it is said, according to Jyotish Shastra, that the planets will influence a lot more for a person who doesn't necessarily tread the path of dharma. If one leads a path of dharma, the influence of the planets is reduced or minimized or mitigated. The question is, we don't know what the path of dharma is to begin with. So we are sort of moving unbeknownst, and therefore the influences are there. But a person who finds out, oh, what is dharma? What is all this? This is important for me to know. And they get on that path, then life is not influenced by it.
Just to build up on this.
Yeah, sure.
Also, all this time we make the choices that gives us a feeling that we are in control of something. So every time we're making a choices, we think that we are in control of making the choices. When it comes to the other part, what we learn in Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is the supreme controller. He decides what has to happen. Then, at that point, how do we resonate to his will or control, or have the trust in him that whatever path I'm going to take would lead me to what is I am destined, or the fate he's wanting me to take. I totally understand the part you said that our nature governs that, but maybe I'm not aware of my nature as
Correct.
such to resonate to his will. So how do we make that happen?
So the first point about we thinking we have control over things. So it's like having a child at home. Okay? If there is a baby, the parent allows the baby to crawl from one place to another place. And the child basically thinks, I can crawl anywhere I like. As soon as the child gets to the edge of the stairs, there are boundaries that the child cannot cross. Parent will immediately pick up and reorient them. Right? So like the cow that has a leash, so as long as the length of the leash determines the freedom of movement. We think we have, but it's still the leash that is on. Right? And for us the leash is that we are forced by birth and death. We are forced by, none of us chose to be born this way, and none of us is choosing to die. Right? But that's how it. So the sense of control is considered illusory in the sense that it feels like it's in our hands, but actually that's not the case. It is there in smaller choices. It's there. Why? Because we are individual conscious beings. So we have certain choices to make, but that are within certain boundaries. Okay. Now, how do I know that what are some of those nature, what nature allows me to resonate with what Krishna would like? So that is why Krishna gives the Bhagavad Gita, or any tradition has their certain books of knowledge that help orient persons accordingly. Now, how authentic or not, that's for everyone to find out for themselves. But there are then indicators that one who orients themselves in this way has these kinds of freedom. And Krishna says, you orient yourself to me on the path of Bhakti Yoga. And this is how you'll be free of those boundaries. For example, in the 7th chapter, Krishna says, Daivi hi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. This divine energy of mine called Maya is like this very, very amazing, tightly binding rope that no one can avoid. And he says in the third line, Mam eva ye prapadyante, but one who connects with me on the path of, let's say, Bhakti Yoga, one who connects with me in a loving relationship of service, Mayam etam taranti. Taranti means one crosses over. So the limitations that's there in general, suddenly, or I shouldn't say suddenly, gradually or on this path are not there. That's so. What does that life look like? What does that value system look like? What are those sets of choices that look like? Is something that the human being needs to discover within this human life, if possible. Shiva and Karthik.
When you mentioned about the favorable situation and unfavorable things that comes out of the choices that we make, isn't it like we feel the choices that we make needs to be always favorable to us?
Correct. No one will choose an unfavorable one. However, in some cases, we choose unfavorable outcomes only because we think at this point in time, I have to make someone else happy, which is favorable for me. So this choice is unfavorable, but overall it might become more favorable for me.
But for the persons whom we love or think really important, we always tend to make choices even though it's unfavorable for us. But on a larger scale, isn't it like that favorable and unfavorable state points us towards selfishness?
Correct. We are making perhaps an unfavorable choice because we don't want to deal with whatever is the outcome of their unhappiness. So we may make a unfavorable choice. But if we made a favorable choice that's important to us, that's favorable to us, then there's a matter of conversation as to why. And then love means respecting each other's choices and giving each other the freedom to make choices that they like. So that's on this side of the giving side of love. And on the taking side of love is that someone can choose to participate or not participate in the relationship, and that's okay. And now back to the giving side, because I have the choice, I can choose someone else or something else, I choose this relationship. That is the freedom of love. Otherwise it's forced. And love is not forced or restricted. Love means freedom. There has to be freedom in the relationship. Now I'm speaking about relationship with God, but even in any human relationship, if we say I love that person, then that means I give that person complete freedom and not determined by or not conditioned by or not conditional to my liking or disliking. Otherwise our love is very conditional. I will love this person only if they, or I will love this person only if they don't, whatever is those things. Then it puts them into very, it boxes them. And so within that box, there is some love, but it's restricting.
should the dharmic knowledge influence the choices that we make?
Absolutely.
That has to be
Always. Always. When you're on the path of dharma, meaning a value system that is theistic, dharma is a theistic value system.
which was guided by the scripture.
Right. So that theistic value system will guide the factors for making certain choices. For example, in a theistic pathway, let's say you have to bribe somebody to get something done. If you are determined to stay on that path of theistic conduct, even if it is uncomfortable, even if the outcome is going to be painful or not favorable, you will stick to this value system.
Not moving out of
Yeah, because then otherwise you have chosen a different value system to guide you. Then the outcomes are very different. You want to hear an interesting story?
Sure.
I mean, it's just one of my friends went through it. So some years ago, one of my friends, she had in her childhood come from Mexico. And the conditions in Mexico were very, very difficult for the family. So as a young person, a young woman of a young girl of 10 or 12 years old, whatever, I can't remember the age, they had made this difficult path of walking across for many, many, many days and nights and come into America. Okay. Many years passed by. Over time, they became married, right? And they got married to an American citizen. And it was the time for them to go for their green card interview. Okay? And the next day, they were going to be asked the question, have you ever come into the United States in an undocumented or illegal way? That was the question that they were going to face. Now here's the dilemma that they knew for sure that question will come because it's a standard question. If they said yes, then the officer would say, sorry, right? You cannot, this is not okay. If they said no, the guy who's there, the office, already knows in one sense. And they will say, oh, you're lying, so forget it. So should they say no and take a chance? Or should they say yes and for sure be kicked out? And the previous night, they went through this literal meltdown. Because all they could see was being sent back. And when I got the phone call and they said, I feel like saying no. I never crossed the US into the border illegally. We'll see how it goes. And the question went back and forth, back. What is your value system? I should say yes. Then what is the problem? I am afraid. Now fear is governing me. Then the sense. So as soon as I'm afraid, so we went through a whole hour of back and forth, till the person said, you know what? I should speak the truth. Because that's important for me. Okay, now that means back across the board. Okay, that's what it is, that's what it is. So we are hoping that determination will last till the next morning, because at the moment of truth is not what you thought about, it's at the interview what happens. That's the moment of truth. Until this while I could have thought, I'll say yes. At that point, did you cross? No. So this person, and great respect and honor for their courage against all odds, was asked, did you cross the border illegally? They said yes. It was many years ago, in a desperate condition. Yes, I did. The officer looked at them, and those moments are like the most determining moments. what's going to happen. My fate is in their hand. Approved. Okay, but and the relief was not so much, oh, it was a 50% chance. Whatever was the outcome, fine. But my value system, the theistic value system tells me, speak the truth and stay with it. Now, it is possible they could have been rejected. Yet, what they would have stayed with is, all right, I stayed on, I was in harmony with my value system, and that is important for me. Because if we are not consistent with our value system, then we don't become trustworthy. People cannot trust us. So, for example, I'm in a relationship with someone, let's say a wife, and I promise in goodness or whatever, in richness or poor, in good health or bad health, good circumstance, I am with you. That's the value I've expressed. So as soon as things turn sour for me, I'm sorry. Then I am not trustworthy. Right? So it may be unfavorable, whatever, but sticking to that theistic value system is critical. Anything from you? Any comments, thoughts? Anyone else? Or we'll stop, have dinner and chat more. Okay. So thank you for joining. I know it's the last finals week or near finals week, but thank you for joining us. Hare Krishna. So we'll serve dinner and we can talk while dinner is going on. Oh, there were a few more questions. Karthik had, you had, no? Sorry. I was looking at the clock.